I suppose there's no getting around it. I just can't face writing it all up as a humongous essay. So you get to see me talk some more. If you're not too sick of that already. Well, here we are talking about this preparation exercise that I did for what seems to be the evolution of Whimsical Ways. I'm not sure I have it in me to play, anymore right away. I kind of do. But anyway, I called for some, hey, throw me some characters because if I want to work on making situation, the risk of me making characters and then saying, as a game master, how would I examine this material for novel situation creation? Well, you can see the pitfalls there. Part of my brain will definitely know that I'm about to do that. So, what I needed was independent input, just the way that I had with Helma and Noah for the game we played. But I wanted more. We need at least 3 people. So, in response, Helma and Ross and Greg responded with, "Ooh, I'll make one." So here I was, landed with 3 effectively, well, in fact, independent character creations. And then the job for this game is then to say, listen, you never do any situational stuff at the first situation. You just take the characters and you look at them and then you make the situation. It's very solipsistic, as I mentioned before, creatively speaking. All right. So what I got wasn't really all that formal. The different people wrote up or took notes as we just walked through the character creation each time. Me staying very procedural, making no decisions or explaining nothing like about backgrounds or anything, so as not to influence. And so ended up with sort of various notes in various forms from each of the 3, rather than try to summarize those because they only make sense in light of what was said at the time. I basically made a little chart. So this is very rough. It's only for my eyes. And what you see in document 1 here is that you have my first pass at some summary material, and then you have my notes all over that after I printed it. So what is the net effect? First of all, if you just look at the printed material, you can see, first of all, I lost control at Hero Forge and, cobbled up the characters as I saw them, then checked a little bit. For example, Greg's character with the relic. He knew it was a weapon. He knew that it was this ancient tribal thing. So I made a crystal spear. And then I said, hey, Greg, can it be a crystal spear? And he said, oh, that's perfect. So, all right, that's what it is. So anyway, that's purely visual. I actually chose it just on the basis of, oh, that's a good looking one, right? Little options there. Well, so I made this little chart, and some of it comes, or a lot of it comes right off their sheets. Everything under issues is stuff that is very straightforwardly off their sheets, and everything else is what they chose or rolled or said about what they rolled or made up when required. So first of all, it's just some characterization stuff under the issues and immediate situations. This also comes off their goals. So, for example, helping the beggar friend is a goal of Leonidas, and stuff like that. So I have taking the relic somewhere. That's a goal for. It was rolled, but then it was adopted by Greg as saying, and that thing I rolled right there, that is an immediate goal for the character. Anyway, so we have the big issue too is a bunch of NPCs. So I'm list some characters that they've got there, and I also have noted that all of them have political stuff in their life paths. So what is kind of the political content or context for anything that we knew about the characters? So I summarized that stuff. Now, the big one at the end is weirdness, because one thing I've really realized about this game is that it is super the GM's job to take all the weird stuff in each character's background, goals, situation, and really ramp it up. I mean, think of your artist as, Marshall Rogers, if anyone remembers him from the comics, and he's going to go crazy. I mean, if you say, and then there's a bug wizard, he's like, oh, bug visions, man, and they get me. I'm going to draw more bug visions over there. And so you have to get in that mindset and say, all right, I'm taking all the weirdness, seeing which pieces of it, hook together or don't even, and just pour it on the situation. Turn it up. Say, what is that? And say what it is, like one layer deep from what the player knows. And it's full of potential action, right? The weirdness is going to do a thing, at least, as an ongoing feature of the situation. So what about hooking things together like I was talking about? Now, given that the backgrounds and the situations, even the immediate starting circumstances of the characters with their goals and the latest lifeline and things can be very fraught. There's two steps. There's the attachment of things, it's all connected. And then there's the recognition that we could attach more things by making up stuff. But there's a place to stop doing that. But the first step, you have to kind of be a little irresponsible and think to yourself, well, what could be the case so that those two things actually are hooked up? Some of them were insanely unavoidable. I had reviewed the material after making the sheet, realized I'd forgotten or had missed that Ross's character had a deceased cousin too. So there's two deceased cousins, one for each of the tribal characters. It is a piece of the backdrop that the free tribes and the Amazon tribes are very continuous in any practical sense. Territories, kin, their religion is continuous. It's just that the free tribes have somewhat adapted theirs, or have them been recast by the Empire to be sort of compatible with imperial stuff. But it's kind of the same. That's just an influence on those sectors of the tribes. So those call themselves the free tribes, and the others, are called by the Empire the Amazon tribes. But really, it's very continuous. So if they both have this deceased cousin, and they actually both got an inheritance from a deceased cousin, you're kind of going, all right, how hard is it that these two characters are cousins from different directions of the same person? So this also matters because it makes more things that just keep piling into that node, is that although Greg's character is in the free tribes, whose religion has sort of taken on this pro-imperial or imperial compatible cast, he had rolled that his character belonged to the minorities viewpoint in the free tribes to sort of resist that they like the old ways, and that emphasizes fertility and the wild. So his religion isn't, he practices in a way that kind of resists that co-opting. Whereas we have over in the Amazon tribe character, that Ross had rolled. Well, first of all, it's the sort of the originalist, mode of that religion in the first place. And then of the ones that he had rolled, it emphasized savagery. So that's just more fuel to the concept that these two characters belong to the same diffuse superfamily structure, which is divided, perhaps multiply divided into varying degrees at different points, by the distinction between free tribe and Amazon, which is, as I say, is rather an external perception rather than really all. I mean, the tribe's people are feeling that quite intently now, but in terms of kin and stuff like that, it's not a boundary. Okay, it's just, I'm looking at it going, they are so cousins, distant cousins from one another. They both received this inheritance from the same dead guy. Got it. And then I read what each one wrote about that, and that made content that just, I now knew that it was integrated content with the same person. So that's an example. And in that case, I had to make it up. Oh, hey, look, it's the same cousin. But all the other details were so coherent with that concept that you kind of shrug and say, you know, only an idiot would deny what the dice and various independently derived statements about the results have wrought. You know, it's, a fool would deny that these two characters are related and that that guy's the same guy. So that's one thing. We also have with Leonidas, Helma's character, that he is a half snake who lives in the home imperial city. Whoa, hold on here. Hold the phone. We've got a half snake, super civilized, and he's not criminalized or anything. He has no fraught aspects in terms of his lifestyle and his circumstances. And so Helma's like, oh, this is the most urban guy ever. He lives in the home imperial city. He's always been there. He's this artist with, you know, a very respected artiste with political impacts. I mean, he's socked into that whole situation. And then I have these two tribal characters, one in the Free Tribes and one in the Amazon tribes, who are well, and also of the Free Tribesmen, you know, one of the less pro-imperial ones. So I mean, we're way over there. It's like, okay, I look at the map and I'm like, oh, here and there. Okay, so that's one thing. But we have a couple of things that really hook them. First of all, we've got that Leonidas has been political. I mean, the Lifelines, you know, talk about this. That really ramped up his political influence through his art. Has a romantic interest who is this politically ambitious character, and has a rival for that romantic interest who is a feared outlaw. So somebody's running around outlawed by the Empire, but this woman is actually kind of hooked up with or considering or romantically inclined regarding these two men, one of whom is this, you know, this artiste, super civilized in the city. Helma had said that this woman is also a half snake, and in that same culture, in that same zone, sphere of walk of life. And then we have this outlaw running around that, as Helma explained, is actually a former friend of Leonidas, is more radical in politics, but in the same direction. Just more radical about it. So really, you can kind of see, okay, this politically ambitious woman, and then these two politicized men, one of whom is more radical than the other to the point of having become a criminal, the other one who's trying to change society with his art. So this is looking kind of intense. Well, what's the policy question? We don't know. There it is, right there. Because what do we see with the tribes characters? We see, first of all, that Ross's character, the Amazon tribe person, has a friend. And that friend, as it turns out, is also an outlaw. And that his character, having done something, you know, naughty with the outlaw, is now has an imperial warrant out on her. So here we're looking again, and I'm saying, you know, just how arbitrary, quote, you know, gluey is it for me to say, well, it's the same outlaw. And at first I was thinking, come on, you know, we've already got this super hooked up, you know, that's a this and this is a that and that goes with this and that was the same kind of thing going on with that cousin. Do we really want to glue Ross's character so strongly to Helma's character? Really? So I'm thinking about that. Then I note that we've got the other tribal character with this crystal relic, which was all wrapped up with a mistaken identity and a political scandal in the tribe, and that he has to take it somewhere, and that this thing has deep significance. And there is this, specifically it said political scandal surrounded by the way he got it and the smearing of the dead cousin's name, as Greg had described it in his contribution to making sense of the Lifelines. And I'm looking at it and going, well, that's got to be a political issue. That's got to be I mean, it's all about the free tribes. How do they relate to the Empire? Then I looked at what Ross had written about his character and about how his character had started off and he has this relative with mental problems, and he wrapped it all up with the dead cousin and with the sister becoming more and more crazily militant, and how that kind of had sucked his character into being more and more and more active against the Empire. Now the sisters, run off somewhere to be, probably causing problems of some kind, and his character's been stuck with this Imperial warrant because he's gotten wrapped up with this outlaw who, does anti-imperial stuff. And I'm like, oh god, it's got to be the same outlaw, and the political issue that Leonidas is all about, and the woman, and the same outlaw, concerns this whole thing with the Empire relating to the tribes. I mean, I'm looking at it and going, okay, this is kind of well past my point that I would use for Circle of Hands or for Sorcerer, where you look at all these components and you're like, oh, and then this goes here and that fits there, and that guy's this guy's sister, and all that stuff. It's like past that point, but I'm saying, okay, maybe that's what this game is like. Maybe that's where you realize that the game is going to stick stuff together in ways that are dumb to, to avoid. So that a given game of Whimsical Ways is definitely going to be, and how all these intersections created a super blow up here. That's how it works.